Hello, class, and welcome back to World Civilizations as we continue our conversations about the Second World War. So, for today's lesson, there is quite a bit of information to move through. I'm going to move through it very quickly. So, of course, as always, feel free to pause this video continuously as needed to get down the essential information. Please title today's section of your notes Early Acts of Aggression. So, just to begin, I want you to think back to our lesson on the Treaty of Versailles at the end of the First World War. All of the meticulous articles put in place to prevent a future world war from happening, the sanctions on Germany, making sure that they wouldn't remilitarize the Rhineland, no Anschluss with Austria, preventing Czechoslovakia and Poland from being taken over, creating all of these different ways to keep world peace and order. And now you'll see that Mussolini and Hitler are going to start very slowly chipping away at these things. So it starts with early aggression, really, in Germany in a couple different ways. By 1936, the Rhineland is going to be remilitarized by Hitler. Now, don't forget, the Treaty of Versailles forbid this from happening. It was only reinforced in the Locarno treaties that said that the Rhineland would remain a neutral zone and that all countries of the world would maintain their borders. By 1938, Hitler had declared an Anschluss, or a political union, with Austria. This was another thing that the Treaty of Versailles strictly forbid. So now essentially Hitler is going to be moving into Austria, as you're seeing over here on the side, and taking it over. So now not only is the Rhineland remilitarized, but Austria has also been absorbed by Germany. So now you might be thinking, what's his next move? Well, it's right here, Czechoslovakia. So he's going to start moving into this region that you probably recall, which is called the Sudetenland, as he continues to grow the Nazi regime and his empire. So, what exactly is the Sudetenland again? It's the region of Czechoslovakia that has 3.5 million ethnic Germans living in it. If you take a look at this picture over here on the side, it's this region that's like shaded in this red color. This would be the Sudetenland. So at this time, Hitler starts giving these passionate speeches demanding that Germany be allowed to take the Sudetenland from Czechoslovakia because of the people who live there. Just listen to this. I am asking neither that Germany be allowed to oppress 3.5 million Frenchmen, nor am I asking that 3.5 million Englishmen be placed at our mercy. Rather, I am simply demanding that the oppression of 3.5 million Germans in Czechoslovakia cease, and that the inalienable right to self determination take its place. Sound familiar? Hitler's doing something very clever here. He's drawing from John Locke, Inalienable Rights, right? The Declaration of Independence. And he's drawing from Woodrow Wilson's 14 points by referencing self determination. So he's making the argument these are things that the Western world champions, says are so important, and we as Germans are just trying to bring these things to Germans who are living in Czechoslovakia. So this prompts what's called the Munich Crisis. And you can see the Prime Minister of Great Britain at the time over here on the side. That's Neville Chamberlain. So at this time, the Allies wanted to avoid war with Germany at all cost. Think of the interwar art and literature, right? All of those different images, the imagery of the horror of warfare, how traumatized the public was left. So they don't act during the remilitarization of the Rhineland. They don't act during the Anschluss with Austria, even though this is a major problem. And now it's looking more and more likely that Czechoslovakia could be next. So, what does Chamberlain do? He offers to meet with Hitler and discuss the issue. So instead of condemning the behavior, instead of saying, no, you cannot violate the Treaty of Versailles, instead of the League of Nations stepping up and going after Germany, they simply request a meeting. And this might be a very strange thing to look at. Oftentimes, when you think of Hitler, you think of this isolated, evil dictator, very much separated from the Western world as he's orchestrating World War II. But here you're seeing these world leaders actually shaking hands and meeting before the Second World War begins. And again, you can see this over here in the image on the right as well. So, representatives from France, Great Britain, Italy, and Germany meet in Munich to discuss the issue of Czechoslovakia. And interestingly, they kind of give Hitler what he largely wants. It's decided that land that has more than 50% ethnically German people living in it, people who speak German, who live German lives, maintain German traditions, will be allowed to return to Germany. Think of how far of a move away from the Treaty of Versailles that is. There are articles in the treaty that basically says that Germany is never allowed to take land from Czechoslovakia, and here you have the Western powers, the Allies, saying you can take land that has a majority German people. So technically, they are avoiding war here, but the question becomes at what cost? Take a look at this image. These are the world leaders from the time. You're seeing Neville Chamberlain of Great Britain, Dalliere of France, Hitler of Germany, and Mussolini of Italy, as well as his accomplice over here on the side. So this map really shows you the parts of Czechoslovakia that are going to be going to Germany. You can see it's a very substantial part of it. Take a look at the coloration over here on the side. So you can see all the parts that are red and maroon would now be going back to Germany. This is a massive problem because look at how it's scattered all throughout this new country. Think of all of the problems this is going to cause. Of course, if Hitler is taking all of these districts, what's going to be his next move? Of course, conquering the entire nation. So, Chamberlain and Dalliere go back to their respective countries. Crowds are cheering from them. People are very excited that war has been avoided. But not all political figures are equally as content. Many, like future Prime Minister Winston Churchill, are very nervous about this shaky political alliance and this shaky agreement. Churchill prophetically says, "You were given the choice between war and dishonor. You chose dishonor, and you will have war anyway." And you can see in this political cartoon how many are going to interpret the Munich Agreement. You can see these two guys here would be representing the Western powers, the Allies, and they're literally handing Czechoslovakia over to Hitler on a silver platter. This is the quintessential example of the policy of appeasement. Here you can see Hitler moving into the Sudetenland. All of those people that you're seeing around him are ethnically German people who are giving him the salute. You can see Nazi flags are being flown in the background as people excitedly stand in the middle of the street to commemorate the arrival of Hitler. And again, you're seeing Nazi flags here being flown, extreme nationalism, and excitement about the arrival of the Fuhrer. And the same thing here. People in tanks high-fiving and shaking hands with the ethnically German people in the Sudetenland.